What if Naruto met female Tobirama and marry her? Naruto Uzumaki had seen a lot of weird stuff in his life. Talking toads, giant bijou made of chakra, a guy who could revive the dead, the list went on. But standing in the ruins of an ancient Uzumaki shrine, staring at a glowing purple rift that had just torn open in the middle of reality itself, he was pretty sure this took the cake. Okay, he said slowly, backing away from the swirling vortex. This is bad. This is really, really bad. You think? Sakura shouted from behind the remains of a stone pillar, where she was sheltering with Kakashi. What the hell did you touch, Naruto? I didn't touch anything. I just read the scroll like we were supposed to. You read it out loud. How else was I supposed to read it? The mission had seemed simple enough when they'd started. Intelligence had discovered an old Uzumaki clan shrine deep in the land of whirlpools, untouched since the clan's destruction decades ago. As the last Uzumaki and the Hokage, Naruto had wanted to personally investigate, hoping to find scrolls or techniques from his mother's people. They'd found scrolls all right. Ancient ones, written in old Uzumaki script that Naruto could barely read. He'd been carefully translating one that seemed to be about sealing techniques when the words had started glowing. Before he could stop, the scroll had activated, drawing massive amounts of chakra from him and the surrounding area. Now there was a rift in space-time hanging in the middle of the shrine, getting bigger by the second. Can you close it? Kakashi called out, his Sharingan spinning as he analyzed the jutsu. I don't know how. Naruto formed a shadow clone and sent it toward the rift to investigate. The clone got within 5 feet before it was sucked in and disappeared with a pop. Yeah, that's not good. The rift pulsed, expanding further. Naruto could feel it pulling at his chakra, trying to drag more power out of him. Whatever this thing was, it was connected to him now, feeding off his energy. We need to seal it, Sakura yelled. Before it tears the whole shrine apart. Naruto started forming hand signs for a sealing jutsu, one of the few his mother had left instructions for. But before he could complete it, the rift flared with blinding purple light, and someone stepped through. Naruto's eyes adjusted to see a figure standing in the middle of the shrine, silhouetted against the dying light of the rift. As the glow faded, he got his first clear look at the newcomer. It was a woman, probably in her late 20s or early 30s. She was tall, nearly as tall as Naruto, with silver-white hair that fell to her shoulders and was marked with distinctive red eyes that were currently narrowed in suspicion and confusion. She wore armor that looked like it came from the Warring States period, practical, battle-worn, and designed for serious combat. But what really caught Naruto's attention was the way she held herself. There was an aura of absolute authority and controlled power that reminded him of only a few people he'd ever met. And there was something familiar about her features, though he couldn't quite place it. The woman's eyes swept the shrine, taking in everything in seconds: the modern ninja gear, the architecture, the three of them. Her hand dropped to the sword at her waist. Where am I? She demanded, her voice sharp and commanding. What village is this? And how did you activate a temporal seal? Temporal seal? Naruto repeated. That's what that was? The woman's eyes locked onto him, and Naruto felt like he was being dissected by her gaze. You activated a forbidden Uzumaki time displacement technique, and you didn't even know what it was? Are you an idiot? Hey! Actually, yeah, that was pretty dumb, Naruto admitted. But in my defense, the scroll didn't come with instructions. The scroll should have come with massive warnings in the Uzumaki clan cipher. Unless... The woman's expression shifted slightly. What year is it? And answer truthfully, I'll know if you're lying. Kakashi stepped forward carefully, hands visible to show he wasn't threatening. It's year 483 by the village calendar. About 70 years since Konoha's founding. The woman went very still. When she spoke again, her voice was carefully controlled, but Naruto could hear the shock underneath. 70 years? That's impossible. The seal should only have displaced me by days at most, not decades. Who are you? Sakura asked, medical jutsu ready in case this was a fight. The woman straightened, and despite the obvious shock she was dealing with, her bearing was absolutely regal. I am Tobirama Senju, second Hokage of Konohagakure, master of water-style techniques, and creator of most of the jutsu your village uses. She paused. Or at least, I was in my timeline. Based on your reactions, I'm guessing something is very different here. Naruto's brain short-circuited. Your what? Impossible, Kakashi said flatly. Tobirama Senju was male. And he died during the first Great Ninja War. Male? Tobirama's eyebrow raised. I assure you I'm quite female, as anyone with eyes can see, and I haven't participated in any Great Ninja War. The last major conflict I was involved in was against the Uchiha clan 3 months ago. The rift behind her pulsed again, and Tobirama spun around, her hand moving in a blur through hand signs. A barrier of water sprung up around the rift, containing it. That won't hold for long. We need to close this properly or it will continue to destabilize. How? Naruto asked, moving to stand beside her. Tobirama glanced at him, and something in her expression shifted. You're an Uzumaki. I can sense the clan's chakra in you. The seal activated using your bloodline, only you can close it. Great. How do I do that? Channel your chakra into the seal anchor there, that stone in the center, and reverse the flow. It should collapse the temporal rift and seal the technique again. Tobirama's water barrier was already starting to crack under the pressure. Quickly! Naruto didn't waste time arguing. He rushed to the stone she'd indicated, placed his hands on it, and pushed his chakra into it. The seal lit up with Uzumaki script, and he could feel the technique trying to resist him, trying to stay open. More power! Tobirama commanded, her barrier straining. Don't hold back. Naruto tapped into Kurama's chakra, letting the Biju's power flow through him. The seal responded immediately, the script glowing golden as it began to reverse. The rift shrieked an actual audible sound like reality tearing and then collapsed in on itself with a sound like thunder. Silence fell over the shrine. Naruto stumbled back from the stone, breathing hard. That had drained more chakra than he'd expected. Tobirama's water barrier dissolved, and she stood examining the now sealed stone with a critical eye. Well done, she said grudgingly. Crude technique, but effective. The seal should hold now. Thanks, I think? Naruto looked at her more carefully. Now that the immediate crisis was over, he could really see the resemblance to the pictures he'd seen of the second Hokage. Same distinctive features, same sharp intelligence in the eyes, same white hair. But definitely female, and apparently from some kind of alternate timeline. So, what happens now? Tobirama turned to face him fully, and Naruto saw the moment the reality of her situation hit her. For just a second, her controlled mask slipped, and he saw something like despair flash across her face before she locked it down again. Now, she said quietly, you explain exactly what timeline this is, how different it is from mine, and whether there's any way to send me back. They relocated to Konoha, which was a whole experience in itself. Tobirama had said nothing during the journey, but Naruto saw her reactions to everything they passed. The developed roads, the way the land of fire had expanded and prospered, the obvious peace and prosperity everywhere. When they finally crested the hill and saw Konoha spread out below them, massive, modern, with the Hokage monument visible in the distance, she stopped completely. This is Konoha? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yeah, Naruto said, trying to see it through her eyes. Pretty different from your time, I'm guessing? Different doesn't begin to cover it. When I left, we had barely 500 people and most of the buildings were still being constructed. This is... She trailed off, and Naruto saw her eyes go to the monument. To the 4 faces carved there: Hashirama, Tobirama, male version, Hiruzen, and Minato. Her hand clenched into a fist. My brother's dream came true. He actually did it. There was so much pain and longing in her voice that Naruto felt it like a physical thing. He wanted to say something comforting. But what could you say to someone who just discovered they'd been ripped away from their entire life and dropped in a future where everyone they knew was dead? Come on, he said gently. Let's get you somewhere you can sit down, and we can talk properly. They took her directly to the Hokage's office, avoiding the main streets. Naruto didn't want to cause a panic by parading someone who looked like a female version of the second Hokage through the village without explanation. In his office, Naruto had Shikamaru and a few other trusted advisors waiting. They'd sent word ahead, and everyone looked varying degrees of skeptical and concerned. Lord Hokage, Shikamaru said, his eyes on Tobirama. Care to explain why there's a woman who looks exactly like the second Hokage in our village? Because she is the second Hokage, Naruto said, dropping into his chair. Just from an alternate timeline where, apparently, she's a woman and things went differently. That's impossible, one of the advisors said immediately. I literally just walked through a temporal rift, Tobirama said coldly. I assure you, impossible is relative. Now someone explain to me what happened in this timeline. Start with my brother, is Hashirama alive? The silence that met that question was answer enough. I see. Tobirama's voice was perfectly controlled, but Naruto saw her hands clench. When did he die? During the founding period, Shikamaru said carefully. The exact details are unclear, but it was within a few years of the village's establishment. And in my absence the male version of me he took over as second Hokage? Yes. He ruled for several years before dying in battle during the First Great Ninja War. He was succeeded by Hiruzen Sarutobi, then Minato Namikaze, then. Shikamaru gestured to Naruto. Then me, Naruto finished. Seventh Hokage. Though there were a couple others in between that we don't really count. Tobirama absorbed this information with the same controlled calm she'd shown since arriving. I want to know everything. Every major event, every war, every significant change. I need to understand this timeline. They spent the next 4 hours going through history. Tobirama listened to everything: the formation of the village, the various wars, the Uchiha massacre, which made her eyes narrow dangerously, the Akatsuki, the Forest Shinobi War, everything up to the present day. She asked sharp, pointed questions that revealed a brilliant strategic mind. She challenged assumptions, pointed out inefficiencies, and made observations that had Shikamaru frantically taking notes. By the time they finished, Naruto's brain hurt from trying to keep up with her. This timeline is significantly more violent than mine, Tobirama finally said. You've had 4 major wars in the span of 70 years. We barely managed to stop the clan conflicts in my time. What was your timeline like? Naruto asked, curious despite everything. Chaotic. The village was new, alliances were fragile, and we were constantly putting down rebellions and dealing with clans who resented the new order. Tobirama looked out the window at the village. My brother believed in peace and cooperation. I believed in strength and control. We argued constantly about how to build the village. Sounds familiar, Shikamaru muttered. The second Hokage of our timeline had similar conflicts with the first. I imagine so. Some things are probably universal. Tobirama turned back to them. Now let's discuss the important question: can I return to my timeline? Shikamaru and Naruto exchanged looks. We'll need to research it, Shikamaru said carefully. The Uzumaki clan's sealing techniques are mostly lost, and temporal jutsu are legendary for being unpredictable. It could take months or even years to figure out how to safely send you back. And that's assuming it's even possible, Naruto added. The seal might have been one way only. Tobirama was quiet for a long moment. I see. Then I'm stranded here. Not stranded, Naruto said quickly. You're a guest. A very honored guest. We'll give you a place to stay, resources, anything you need while we research the technique. And in the meantime? In the meantime, you're in Konoha. You're safe here. Naruto smiled at her. I know this isn't your home and everyone you knew is gone, but this is still Konoha. Your brother's village. It's not the same as your timeline, but it's still the place you helped build. Tobirama looked at him for a long moment, those red eyes studying his face like she was trying to figure him out. You're unusually optimistic for a Hokage. Yeah, I get that a lot. But I mean it will help you however we can. Why? You don't know me. For all you know, I could be a threat to your village. Are you? No. But you have no way of knowing that. Naruto shrugged. Call it instinct. You just watched us lay out 70 years of history, including all our secrets and vulnerabilities. If you wanted to hurt us, you've got plenty of ammunition now, but instead you asked about research to go home? That tells me you're not a threat. That's remarkably poor security practices, maybe. But it's also how I've made most of my friends, by trusting them first, and letting them prove they're trustworthy. That's insane. That's Naruto, Shikamaru said dryly. Get used to it. He's been doing things the hard way his entire life, and somehow it always works out. Tobirama shook her head, looking somewhere between impressed and exasperated. Fine. I'll accept your hospitality while we research a way home. But I want to be useful. I'm not the type to sit idle. Put me to work. Seriously? Naruto perked up. Because I could really use help with some of the administration stuff. Shikamaru handles most of it, but there's always more. No, Tobirama said firmly. I'm a shinobi and a tactician, not a paper pusher. Give me something that uses my actual skills. We could use someone with your expertise in jutsu development, Shikamaru suggested. Our research division is always working on new techniques. That's acceptable. I also want access to your library and archives. Understanding this timeline fully will require extensive reading. Done and done, Naruto said. Shikamaru, can you set her up with an apartment, and get her credentials for the archives? Already on it. Shikamaru stood up. Lady Tobirama, if you'll follow me? Tobirama stood as well, then paused and looked back at Naruto. Thank you. I don't agree with your methods or your security practices, and I think your optimism is dangerously naive, but I appreciate the help nonetheless. You're welcome, Naruto said with a grin. And hey, maybe while you're here, you can teach us some of those jutsu you invented. I've always wanted to meet the person who created the shadow clone technique. For the first time since arriving, Tobirama's lips twitched into what might have been the beginning of a smile. That technique was supposed to be forbidden. Of course you'd want to learn it. I already know it. I use it all the time. Of course you do. This time it was definitely a smile, small and quickly hidden, but there. I'll take you up on that offer. If I'm going to be stuck here, I might as well make sure you're using my techniques properly. She left with Shikamaru, and Naruto slumped in his chair once they were gone. Well, he said to the empty office. This is going to be interesting. Interesting turned out to be an understatement. Over the next few weeks, Tobirama became a fixture in Konoha. She threw herself into research with single-minded intensity, spending hours in the archives learning about this timeline's history. She also started working with the Jutsu Development Division, and within days had improved 3 techniques that had been stalled for months. But she also made waves. Tobirama didn't believe in sugarcoating things or playing politics. When she thought something was inefficient, she said so. When she saw a policy she disagreed with, she challenged it directly. She criticized the Academy's curriculum, questioned the ANBU's organizational structure, and had very strong opinions about how the village council operated. Naruto found himself in constant debates with her. The integration policy for former enemies is too lenient, Tobirama said during one meeting, arms crossed. You're allowing Oto and Kumo ninja into the village with minimal oversight. They're allies now, Naruto countered. The war is over. We need to move forward together. Alliances shift. Today's friend is tomorrow's enemy. You should maintain surveillance and control measures. That's not how you build trust. Trust is a luxury during peacetime and a liability during war. You should always be prepared for betrayal. That's a horrible way to live. It's a realistic way to lead. They argued constantly about policy, about history, about the very nature of what it meant to be Hokage. It drove Shikamaru crazy because they'd get so caught up in their debates that actual work would grind to a halt. But despite the arguments, Naruto found himself looking forward to their conversations. Tobirama was brilliant, challenging every assumption he made and forcing him to really think about his decisions. She didn't agree with him on much, but she respected his positions and engaged with them honestly. And slowly, very slowly, he started to see past her cold exterior. He noticed that she always stayed late at the archives, reading by lamplight long after everyone else had gone home. He saw the way her expression softened when she read about Hashirama's accomplishments, even as pain flickered across her face. He caught her sometimes standing on the Hokage monument, looking out over the village with an expression of longing so intense it hurt to see. She was lonely. Desperately, achingly lonely. Stranded in a world where everyone she'd ever known was dead, where she was a relic from another timeline, where even the version of herself that belonged here had died decades ago. One evening, Naruto found her on the monument again, sitting on the head of the male Tobirama statue. That's kind of weird, you know, he called up to her. Sitting on your own head. It's not my head. It's the head of whoever existed in this timeline. But she didn't tell him to go away, which Naruto took as progress. He jumped up to sit beside her, looking out over the village. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. Do you think about going back? he asked quietly. Every day. Every hour. Tobirama's voice was soft, lacking its usual sharp edge. This isn't my world, Naruto. It's similar, but it's not mine. My brother is dead here. The village I helped build exists, but it's not the one I left. I'm a ghost haunting a future that isn't mine. That sounds really lonely. It is. She looked at him, and for once her eyes weren't guarded. You're the Hokage. You understand responsibility and sacrifice. Tell me honestly, if you could go back and change things, prevent the pain you've experienced, would you? Naruto thought about it. I don't know. The pain made me who I am. If I changed it, I might not be the person sitting here right now. And I kind of like who I became, despite everything. That's a very mature answer. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not a complete idiot. No, you're not. Tobirama smiled slightly. You're naive, idealistic, and far too trusting. But you're not an idiot. You genuinely care about people, even ones who probably don't deserve it. Everyone deserves someone who cares about them. See, that's exactly the kind of naive statement I'm talking about. But there was no real criticism in her voice. Though I suppose it's that same naivety that makes you a good Hokage. You believe the best in people, and sometimes they rise to meet those expectations. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the village below come alive with evening lights. We'll figure out how to send you back, Naruto said eventually. I promise. We've got the best researchers working on it, and I'm helping too when I have time. I know you're trying. I appreciate it, even if I don't always show it. Tobirama stood up, brushing off her clothes. But Naruto? Even if you do find a way, I'm not sure if I should take it. What? Why not? Because the village I left was struggling. We had constant conflicts, uncertain alliances, and my brother was running himself into the ground trying to make peace with everyone. If I go back, I return to that chaos. But here. She looked out over Konoha, thriving and peaceful. Here, my brother's dream came true. The village he died for succeeded beyond his wildest hopes. Part of me thinks I should stay, just to see it. To be in a world where his sacrifice meant something. Naruto didn't know what to say to that. Before he could think of a response, Tobirama had already used the body flicker technique to vanish, leaving him alone on the monument. He sat there for a long time, thinking about lonely time-displaced Hokages, and the weight of impossible choices, and trying to ignore the small voice in the back of his head that said he was starting to care about Tobirama as more than just a guest in need of help. The situation came to a head 2 months after Tobirama's arrival. Naruto was in his office reviewing reports when alarms started blaring throughout the village. He was out the door in seconds, heading toward the source of the disturbance. He found a scene of controlled chaos at the village gates. A group of rogue ninja, at least 20 of them, had somehow slipped through the border patrols and were attempting to fight their way into Konoha. They were strong too, using coordinated attacks that spoke of serious training, but they were losing, because Tobirama was there. Naruto stopped to watch as she moved through the attackers like water, her techniques flowing seamlessly from one to another. She used the Flying Thunder God technique. Apparently she'd invented that in her timeline too, to teleport around the battlefield, striking from unexpected angles. Her water-style jutsu were devastating, and her taijutsu was efficient and brutal. Within 5 minutes, all 20 attackers were disabled and being restrained by Anbu, who'd arrived as backup. Tobirama stood in the center of the carnage, not even breathing hard, her expression cold and focused. She looked every inch the legendary shinobi her reputation claimed she was. Report, Naruto said, walking up to her. 20 attackers, likely missing Nin based on their varied headbands. They attempted a coordinated assault on the village. I neutralized the threat. Tobirama's voice was perfectly professional. No casualties on our side. 3 of theirs are injured but stable. The rest are ready for interrogation. Good work. Naruto looked at the restrained attackers. Any idea what they wanted? Likely testing our defenses. The attack was too organized to be random, but not committed enough to be a serious invasion attempt. Tobirama walked over to one of the prisoners and grabbed his collar, forcing him to look at her. Who sent you? The man spat at her feet. We don't answer to Konoha anymore. Then you'll answer to the interrogation division. Tobirama dropped him and turned to the Anbu. Take them to holding. Standard processing. The ANBU moved to obey, and Naruto noticed they did so without question, responding to Tobirama's authority automatically. She'd only been in the village for 2 months, but she'd already earned their respect. Once the prisoners were secured and the crowd dispersed, Naruto walked with Tobirama back toward the Hokage Tower. You handled that perfectly, he said. It was a minor skirmish. Hardly worth commenting on. Still. You protected the village. Thank you. Tobirama glanced at him. This is Konoha. My brother's village, even if it's not my timeline's version. Of course I'd protect it. They walked in silence for a bit before Naruto spoke again. You know, you're fitting in here pretty well. The shinobi respect you, you're contributing to the research division, you even got the academy to update their curriculum. Your point? My point is, maybe this doesn't have to be temporary. Maybe you could actually make a life here, in this timeline. Tobirama stopped walking. Naruto, I know you want to go home. I get it. But what if you can't? Or what if going back means going back to a harder, more painful situation? Naruto turned to face her. You've got a place here. People respect you. You're making a difference. Would that really be so bad? You're asking me to give up on my timeline. On my brother, on everything I knew. I'm asking you to consider that maybe you've found something worth staying for. They stood there in the street, and Naruto saw something shift in Tobirama's expression. For just a moment, her guard came down completely, and he saw vulnerability there, want and fear and hope all tangled together. I don't know how to do that, she admitted quietly. Let go of the past and embrace an uncertain future. Nobody does. You just kind of figure it out as you go. That's a terrible plan. Yeah, but it's the only one we've got. Tobirama laughed an actual, genuine laugh that transformed her whole face. You're absolutely ridiculous, you know that? So I've been told. Doesn't make me wrong though. No, Tobirama said softly. No, I suppose it doesn't. They started walking again, and Naruto felt something settle between them. An understanding, maybe? Or the beginning of one. He didn't know what was going to happen with Tobirama. Whether she'd find a way home or decide to stay, whether she'd ever truly fit into this timeline or always feel like a ghost. But he knew one thing for certain: he was glad she was here. Glad for her sharp mind and sharper tongue, for the way she challenged him and made him think. Glad for the moments when her mask slipped and he got to see the person underneath all that armor. And as they walked through the village together, Naruto realized with a start that at some point in the last 2 months, he'd stopped seeing her as just a time-displaced legend who needed help. He'd started seeing her as Tobirama. Just Tobirama. And that realization both excited and terrified him. This was going to get complicated. The first real fight happened 3 weeks after the attack on the village. Naruto sat in a council meeting, listening to various advisors debate policy, when Tobirama, who'd been invited to these meetings as a consultant, suddenly slammed her hand on the table. This is absurd, she said flatly. You're seriously considering allowing Sasuke Uchiha unrestricted access to village facilities and classified information? The room went silent. Naruto felt his jaw tighten. Sasuke's been pardoned. He fought in the war, he's proven his loyalty, and he's my friend. He's an Uchiha who defected from the village, joined a criminal organization, and attacked Konoha directly. Tobirama counted off on her fingers. The fact that he's your friend is irrelevant to security concerns. The fact that he's my friend is exactly why it's relevant, Naruto shot back. I trust him with my life. Your trust is noted. It's also dangerously naive. Tobirama stood up, her red eyes flashing. The Uchiha are inherently unstable. Their Sharingan is linked to intense emotional trauma, which makes them prone to extremism and betrayal. History has proven this repeatedly. History in your timeline, maybe? Things are different here. Are they? Because from what I've read, this Sasuke has betrayed the village multiple times. He killed his own brother's wishes by pursuing revenge. He nearly destroyed the village chasing power. What makes you think he won't do it again? The other council members were watching the exchange like a tennis match, heads swiveling back and forth. Shikamaru looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. Naruto stood up too, matching Tobirama's intensity. Because people can change. Because I changed him. Because we're brothers in everything but blood, and because I'm the Hokage and I say he's trustworthy. Being Hokage doesn't make you infallible. It makes you responsible for everyone in this village. And that responsibility includes not putting them at risk because of personal attachments. I'm not. Naruto took a breath, forcing himself to calm down. Tobirama, I respect your experience. But you don't know Sasuke. You don't know what we've been through together. I know the Uchiha. I've fought them, negotiated with them, and watched them turn on allies the moment it suited their interests. Tobirama's voice was cold. Your Sasuke may be different, but the risk remains. At minimum, he should have restrictions and oversight. He's not going to be treated like a criminal in his own village. Then you're letting personal feelings override security concerns, which is exactly what a Hokage shouldn't do. The argument escalated from there. They went back and forth for 20 minutes, their voices getting progressively louder, until Shikamaru finally interrupted. Both of you stop. This isn't productive. He looked exhausted. Lord Hokage, Lady Tobirama, perhaps you should continue this discussion in private? Naruto glared at Tobirama. She glared right back, either willing to back down. Fine, Naruto said shortly. My office. Now, they left the council chamber, the tension between them thick enough to cut. Once they were in Naruto's office with the door closed, Tobirama wheeled on him. You're making a mistake with the Uchiha, and you're being prejudiced based on experiences from a different timeline with different people. Prejudiced? I'm being realistic. The Uchiha clan's history is full of betrayals and violence. Their bloodline makes them emotionally volatile. That's exactly what prejudice sounds like. Naruto interrupted. Judging someone based on their bloodline instead of their actions. How is that different from how people treated me for having the 9 tails? That made Tobirama pause. That's not the same thing, isn't it? You're saying Sasuke can't be trusted because he's an Uchiha, regardless of what he's done to prove himself. People said I couldn't be trusted because I was a Jinchuriki, regardless of my actions. How is that different? Because the Sharingan literally affects their brain chemistry. It's a documented phenomenon, not baseless fear, and the 9 tails literally tried to destroy the village multiple times. But I proved I was more than just my burden. Sasuke deserves the same chance. Tobirama crossed her arms, her expression hard. You're too close to this. Your friendship is blinding you to legitimate concerns, and your bias against the Uchiha is making you see threats where there aren't any. Naruto ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Look, I get it. In your timeline, things went badly with the Uchiha, but here, we have a chance to do things differently. To not repeat old mistakes. By ignoring the lessons of history? By not being prisoners to it. They stared at each other, both breathing hard, either willing to concede. Finally, Tobirama spoke in a quieter voice. What happens when he betrays you again, Naruto? What happens when your trust gets people killed? It won't. I know him. You can't know that. No one can predict the future with certainty. Maybe not. But I can have faith in the people I care about. I can choose to trust instead of living in constant fear of betrayal. Naruto met her eyes. That's the kind of Hokage I want to be, not one who rules through suspicion and control, but one who leads through trust and belief in people's potential. That's a beautiful sentiment. It's also dangerously idealistic, better than being a cynic who sees enemies everywhere. Tobirama's eyes flashed dangerously. I am not a cynic. I'm a realist who's seen what happens when leaders are too trusting. My brother's trust nearly destroyed everything he built, and my trust saved the world. Naruto shot back. I trusted Sasuke to make the right choice in the end, and he did. I trusted former enemies to fight beside me, and they did. My way works, Tobirama, until it doesn't. Until someone you trust stabs you in the back and people die because you were too naive to see it coming. The argument continued, circular and heated, until both of them were too frustrated to continue. Tobirama left in a huff, and Naruto spent the rest of the day in a foul mood, snapping at people and unable to focus on work. That evening, Sakura cornered him at Ichiraku Ramen. Want to tell me why half the village is talking about you and Lady Tobirama screaming at each other? She asked, sliding onto the stool beside him. We had a disagreement about policy. A disagreement? Naruto, people heard you from 3 buildings away. What happened? Naruto stabbed at his ramen with his chopsticks. She thinks Sasuke shouldn't be trusted. Called the Uchiha inherently unstable and dangerous. I may have gotten a bit defensive. A bit? Sakura raised an eyebrow. From what I heard, you nearly came to blows. We didn't nearly come to blows. We just strongly disagreed. About Sasuke specifically, or about the Uchiha in general? Both. She's got this whole prejudice thing against them based on her timeline's history. Keeps talking about how they're prone to betrayal and extremism. Naruto finally looked at Sakura. She's wrong, right? I mean, I know the Uchiha have a complicated history, but that doesn't mean she's partially right, Sakura interrupted gently. The Uchiha do have a history of instability. The Sharingan's awakening through trauma does affect their emotional state. But she's also wrong, because individuals can overcome their bloodline's tendencies. Sasuke did? Exactly. But she won't listen. She's so stuck in her worldview that she can't see that things can be different. Sakura was quiet for a moment. You know, you're being just as stubborn as she is. What? I'm not, Naruto. She's from a timeline where trusting the Uchiha probably got people killed. Where her experiences taught her that caution and control were necessary for survival. You're dismissing her concerns just as much as she's dismissing yours. Naruto opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. I don't want to believe you're right, but I am. You're both coming from valid perspectives based on your experiences. The problem is neither of you is willing to consider that the other might have a point. Sakura stole a piece of his pork. Maybe instead of fighting about who's right, you should try to understand where she's coming from. And let her understand where you're coming from. How am I supposed to do that when she's so stubborn? Inflexible? Absolutely convinced she's right? Sakura smiled. Remind you of anyone? Naruto groaned. I'm not that bad. You're exactly that bad. You're like mirrors of each other, both completely convinced your way is right, both refusing to budge an inch. It'd be funny if it wasn't causing so much tension in the village. Great. So what do I do? Talk to her. Actually talk, not argue. Try to find common ground instead of just defending your position. Sakura stood up. And maybe consider that you're both right in different ways. Sometimes the best answer is somewhere in the middle. Naruto took Sakura's advice. Sort of. He found Tobirama that evening in the archives, surrounded by scrolls and books like usual. She looked up when he entered, her expression immediately guarded. If you're here to continue our argument, I'm not, Naruto interrupted. I'm here to apologize. That made her pause. Apologize? Yeah. I was dismissive of your concerns today. You've got decades of experience, and you've seen things I haven't. I shouldn't have just blown off your warnings about security. Naruto sat down across from her. But I'm not apologizing for trusting Sasuke. That I stand by. Tobirama studied him for a long moment. That's surprisingly mature of you. I have my moments. Sakura pointed out that I was being as stubborn as you were, so I figured I should at least try to see your side. Sakura is wise. You should listen to her more often. Tobirama set down the scrolls she'd been reading. I suppose I should also apologize. My experiences with the Uchiha and my timeline have colored my judgment. I've been applying old prejudices to new situations. But I still think you're taking unnecessary risks. However, she held up a hand when Naruto started to protest. I'm willing to acknowledge that I don't know this Sasuke Uchiha. My concerns are based on historical patterns, not on his specific actions. That's actually pretty reasonable. Don't sound so surprised. I'm capable of reason. Tobirama's lips quirked slightly. Most of the time. They sat in silence for a moment, the tension from earlier finally dissipating. Can I ask you something? Naruto said. What happened in your timeline with the Uchiha? Why do you distrust them so much? Tobirama's expression darkened. The Uchiha clan in my time was led by Madara Uchiha. He and my brother were friends once, allies who built Konoha together. But Madara became paranoid, convinced the village was plotting against his clan. He turned violent, attempted a coup, and in the end, my brother had to fight him. What happened? Hashirama won, but it broke him. He genuinely loved Madara as a friend, and having to fight him destroyed something inside my brother. After that, the Uchiha clan became increasingly isolated and resentful. We had constant tensions, accusations of spying and sabotage. Tobirama looked away. I proposed strict monitoring and control measures. Hashirama refused, believing we could reach them through compassion and understanding. We fought about it constantly. Who was right? I don't know. I was pulled into this timeline before we found out. Tobirama's voice was soft. But I watched that conflict tear my brother apart. I watched him sacrifice his health and happiness trying to make peace with a clan that saw betrayal in every shadow. It made me cautious. Perhaps overly so. Naruto thought about that. In our timeline, Madara did betray the village. He came back during the war and nearly destroyed everything. But an Uchiha also helped save us Sasuke's brother Itachi. He sacrificed everything to protect the village, even though it meant being hated and misunderstood. So the Uchiha are both the greatest threat and the greatest heroes? Kind of, yeah? They're complicated. Like most people. Naruto leaned forward. Tobirama, I'm not saying your concerns are completely wrong, but I am saying that judging people based on their clan or their bloodline instead of their choices, that's not justice. That's just perpetuating old hatreds. And I'm saying that ignoring historical patterns and legitimate security concerns because of personal friendship isn't leadership. It's favoritism. They were back to disagreeing, but it felt different this time. Less like an argument, and more like a discussion. So where does that leave us? Naruto asked. Somewhere in the middle, I suppose. You continue to trust your friend, but implement reasonable security measures that don't treat him like a criminal. I acknowledge that individuals can transcend their bloodline's history, but maintain awareness of potential risks. Tobirama actually smiled slightly. We both compromise, in other words. I'm terrible at compromising. Yes, I've noticed. Fortunately, I'm excellent at it. Since when? Since never. But I'm willing to try if you are. Naruto couldn't help but laugh. Deal. We'll both try to be less stubborn. That seems unlikely to succeed, but I appreciate the sentiment. They went back to a comfortable silence, and Naruto found himself watching Tobirama as she returned to her scrolls. The lamplight caught the silver in her hair, and he noticed for the first time that she looked tired. Not just physically tired, but emotionally exhausted. Hey, he said quietly. Are you okay? Like really okay? Tobirama looked up, surprised by the question. I'm fine. You're always fine. But you've been stuck here for months now, away from everything you knew, arguing with the Hokage about policy and dealing with a world that isn't yours. That can't be easy. For a moment, Tobirama's mask slipped. No. It's not easy. Most days I wake up and forget where I am, expect to see my brother or the village as I left it, and then I remember, and it's like losing them all over again. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. If anything, you've been remarkably hospitable given that I'm essentially a dimensional refugee. She set down her scroll. The hardest part is feeling useless. In my time, I was the second Hokage, my brother's right hand, essential to the village's survival. Here, I'm just a curiosity. A relic from another timeline with outdated ideas and no real place. That's not true. You've helped the research division, improved our security protocols, updated the academy curriculum, all minor contributions. Nothing essential. Nothing that makes me truly necessary. Tobirama looked at him. You have your role, your purpose. Everyone here does. But what's my purpose, Naruto? What am I supposed to do in a world where I don't belong? Naruto didn't have a good answer for that. He understood the feeling, though, the sense of being lost, of not knowing where you fit. He'd felt that way his whole childhood. I think, he said slowly, your purpose is whatever you make it. Yeah, you're not the Hokage here. You're not leading the village or protecting your brother. But that doesn't mean you don't have value or can't make a difference. Platitudes. No, truth. You've made a difference to me, for one. You challenge my thinking, make me consider angles I wouldn't have seen otherwise. You've made a difference to the research division, to the academy students, to the people you've helped. Naruto stood up. Maybe you're not the person you were in your timeline, but that means you get to decide who you are here. That's not a bad thing, it's an opportunity. Tobirama looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You're annoyingly optimistic, you know that? So I've been told. Doesn't make me wrong. No, she said softly. I suppose it doesn't. The situation with Sasuke came to a head the following week. He returned to the village after a long mission, and Naruto immediately dragged him to a meeting with Tobirama. Both of them protested Sasuke because he had no interest in meeting some time-displaced legend who apparently hated the Uchiha, Tobirama because she saw no point in changing her assessment. Too bad, Naruto said cheerfully. You're both important to me, which means you need to at least try to get along. So we're having dinner together, and you're going to be civil. This is a terrible idea, Tobirama said. Agreed, Sasuke added. Great. Glad you two already have something in common. Let's go. Dinner was awkward. They met at a quiet restaurant, and for the first 10 minutes, nobody said anything except to order food. Naruto tried to start conversation several times, only to be met with monosyllabic responses. Finally, Tobirama broke the silence. I understand you murdered your entire clan, she said conversationally. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. I didn't murder them. My brother did, on orders from the village. And then you spent years trying to destroy that same village in revenge. Yes. And now you're loyal to Konoha again? Yes. Interesting character arc. What changed? Sasuke glanced at Naruto, who was watching the exchange nervously. I realized that revenge wasn't what my brother wanted for me. That destroying Konoha would dishonor his sacrifice. And I had an idiot blonde who wouldn't give up on me, no matter how many times I tried to kill him. Hey! Naruto protested. I prefer loyal friend to idiot blonde. You can be both, Sasuke said dryly. Then he looked back at Tobirama. I know what you think of the Uchiha. Naruto told me about your concerns. You're not entirely wrong, our clan does have a history of instability and betrayal. But we're also capable of incredible loyalty and sacrifice when we find something worth protecting. Like your brother. Like my brother, Sasuke agreed. He was an Uchiha who chose the village over his clan. Who sacrificed everything, including his reputation and his relationship with me, to protect Konoha. If an Uchiha can do that, then maybe we're not as inherently flawed as history suggests. Tobirama was quiet for a moment. I knew an Uchiha like that once. Kagami Uchiha, one of my students. He was loyal, honorable, and put the village above clan politics. I thought he was an exception. Maybe exceptions are more common than you think. Maybe. Tobirama studied Sasuke carefully. I still don't trust you. You've betrayed this village multiple times, and history suggests you could do so again. I don't trust you either, Sasuke replied calmly. You're from another timeline with obvious prejudices against my clan, and you have significant influence over the Hokage despite being here for only a few months. We both have legitimate reasons for suspicion. True. But Sasuke continued, Naruto trusts both of us. Which means we're going to have to find a way to coexist, because neither of us wants to put him in the middle of a conflict. Tobirama actually smiled at that. Also true. Very well, Uchiha. I propose a truce. I won't advocate for restricting your movements or treating you like a threat, and you tolerate my presence without hostility. I can live with that. They shook hands across the table, and Naruto felt relief wash over him. It wasn't friendship or even real trust, but it was a start. The rest of dinner went more smoothly. Sasuke and Tobirama discovered they both had a dry, sarcastic sense of humor, and enjoyed making Naruto uncomfortable with their biting comments. By the end of the evening, they were actually having something resembling a pleasant conversation. That went better than expected, Naruto said as they left the restaurant. Don't get too excited, Sasuke warned. We're not friends. We're just, not actively enemies. I'll take it. Naruto turned to Tobirama. See? He's not so bad. He's tolerable, Tobirama admitted. Still an Uchiha, still potentially dangerous, but less objectionable than I anticipated. High praise from you, Sasuke said. I'm not known for my warmth, I've noticed. They parted ways, and Naruto walked with Tobirama back toward her apartment. The night was cool and clear, stars visible above the village. Thank you, Naruto said. For trying with Sasuke. I know it wasn't easy. You were right that I was judging him based on prejudice rather than his actual actions. That was unfair. Tobirama looked up at the stars. He's still an Uchiha, and I still have concerns, but he's also clearly loyal to you in his own way. That counts for something. It counts for a lot, perhaps. I'm still learning how this timeline works, how to balance caution with trust. She glanced at him. You're a good teacher, even if your methods are unconventional. Was that a compliment? Don't let it go to your head. Naruto grinned. Too late. I'm telling everyone that the legendary Tobirama Senju called me a good teacher. I'll deny it. Doesn't matter. I'll know the truth. Tobirama shook her head, but she was smiling. They reached her apartment building, and she paused at the entrance. Naruto, about our argument earlier this week. I've been thinking about what you said, about not being prisoners to history. You might have a point. Might? Definitely have a point, she corrected. Change is necessary for growth. I've been so focused on preventing past mistakes that I haven't considered new possibilities. That's not productive. Does this mean you're going to stop being so suspicious of everyone? Absolutely not. Healthy suspicion is good leadership. But I'll try to temper it with your optimism. Find a balance. She smiled. We'll keep arguing, I'm sure. We're both too stubborn to avoid that. But perhaps we can argue productively instead of destructively. I can work with that. Tobirama held out her hand. Partners in trying to be less impossible? Naruto shook her hand, feeling the calluses from decades of combat training. Partners. As he walked home that night, Naruto reflected on how much had changed in just a few months. Tobirama had gone from a hostile stranger to someone he genuinely respected and enjoyed spending time with. They still disagreed on plenty of things, but those disagreements felt productive now instead of destructive. And if he was starting to look forward to their arguments, starting to seek out her company even when it wasn't necessary, starting to notice little things like the way she smiled or how her eyes lit up when discussing jutsu theory, well, that was something he'd deal with later. Right now, he was just happy they'd found common ground. Everything else could wait.